We are in a very, very interesting time when it comes to EVs and specifically performance manufacturers. I mean, we have so many companies right now completely changing their EV plans. For example, Audi was supposed to drop the RS6 in pure EV form. They canceled that now. Maserati, the MC20, supposed to launch in a full EV version, also canceled. We have the Ferrari delaying its EV plans by 2 years, and who knows, they're probably never gonna drop the full electric Ferrari in the near future. And now we also have Porsche. They were supposed to drop this big SUV called the K1 it was supposed to be a full EV. The flagship SUV from Porsche is supposed to be full EV, but they are completely ditching these plans now because I think they see that maybe we should reconsider looking at what other companies have already done with performance EVs and how well or how badly they are actually selling. So Porsche is completely reconsidering what their plan is moving forward. It's going to affect their revenue for sure, the profit margins moving forward. So we're going to have a look at two big news from Porsche. First of all, this K1 SUV that, in my opinion, it doesn't look exciting one bit. It looks like a boring, generic-looking, big, bubbly SUV. But on the other hand, Porsche is also testing a new slant nose for the 911 based in the spy photos on the old 911. So I think they might have something coming out. There might be a new slant nose design for the 911. Spy photos look great. We're going to have a look at both of those vehicles here in both articles as well. So there's a lot to cover. So let's jump into Car Scoops here and have a look at these EV plans from Porsche. I'm going to link both these articles down below as always. Porsche EV plans collapse. Flagship SUV to launch with gas instead. I mean, that's a pretty big change. Facing slowing EV demands, Porsche delays electric models and returns to combustions and hybrids. Glad to see that. That's fantastic news. Flagship SUV above Cayenne will now launch without a fully electric version, completely without a fully electric version, which is crazy to think about because that was the whole thing with this new SUV. The dedicated EV platform itself, is scrapped, will be redesigned with the Volkswagen Group brands. Today, we have set the final steps in the realignment of our product strategy, says the CEO of Porsche and the Volkswagen Group. We are currently experiencing massive changes within the automotive environment. That's why we're realigning Porsche across the board, involving the ultra-luxury SUV positioned above the Cayenne. So it's supposed to be a bigger SUV than the Cayenne, internally known as a K1. While it was originally planned to be offered exclusively as a fully electric model, is now initially debut with combustion and plug-in hybrid powertrains only. So no EV in sight, and here we have the design of this. This is what I said. I don't think it looks exciting at all. It looks almost like a mix of static graphics in the front and the rear with these bubbly round proportions. I don't think it's going to be a very attractive looking SUV. We're going to jump into more detail on this in Photoshop in a minute here. So meanwhile, fans of gas-powered Panamera and Cayenne can breathe easy. Both of these models are set to continue with combustion and hybrid power well into the 2030s. Great news from Porsche. The only thing that I'm so interested in seeing how the 718 new platform, the EV platform, is going to perform, since they're ditching this entirely new platform, EV platform, completely scrapping it, but they still have developed the 718 EVs so far already that they are going to launch those. And I think Porsche is very, very nervous about how that is going to sell. Because, as I said, they've seen other manufacturers with sports cars and EVs not doing very well. The development of the dedicated next-gen EV platform that was meant to underpin these models, originally scheduled for 2030s, will no longer proceed as planned. This is the company's response to a significantly slower growth of demand for exclusive battery electric vehicles, specifically in the sports performance sector of car. Porsche confirmed, though, that the electric models already deep into development, such as the soon to be revealed Cayenne EV in both standard and coupe SUV form, as well as the 718 segment, remain on schedule. That is the reason why I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see. Honestly, I think what's going to happen, the 718 EVs, when they come out, they might be on sale for 2 years. I honestly do not think they're going to sell well. I wish they would sell well for Porsche's sake, so they can get in more revenue and develop more cooler, internal combustion and plugins. But I honestly do not see this selling well. So I think it's going to be on sale for maybe 2 years. They're going to see that it's not performing anywhere near as expected, and they're going to go back to combustion engines for the 718. At least that's kind of what I'm seeing moving forward. I could be completely wrong, obviously. Maybe people will go crazy for this 718 EV. Maybe they have something very unique when it comes to this driving experience, but I still have not experienced anything like that at all with electric vehicles. They all feel exactly the same. So these changes build on earlier decisions, such as developing a new combustion engine SUV to replace the aging Macan, using the current Audi Q5 architecture as its base, and this one will be sold alongside the Macan EV, which was, from the beginning, it was meant to be a standalone Macan and not be on the same line as the internal combustion engine versions. So pushing back the new electric vehicle platform will require depreciation and financial provisions, which are set to weigh on operating profits in 2025 by as much as 1.8 billion euros. So the profit margins here are going to drop a lot for Porsche based on these new decisions. With the EV platform being completely scrapped, they're probably, I don't know how many millions they already spent developing this, and now it's not going to happen at all. So looking at the very cool news from Porsche, though, is this one. So this 911 slant nose prototype could be Porsche's biggest surprise in years. And look at this. This looks great with the GT2 RS front end of, I think this is the previous generation, looking great. We have the flush mounted headlights in here. I was not a fan of the older generations of the slant nose because those cylindrical headlights coming out of the hood like that, it's such a typical Porsche design feature that removing that always looked weird. But in this case, it looks very, very cool. So Spy Shots capture a strange Porsche 911 prototype. Add, of course, the ring, sparking speculations of a slant nose revival. I think it's going to happen. I mean, what would be the point of otherwise designing something like this? Even if it's a prototype, what would be the point of making something like this if it's not meant to be in some sort of maybe, a very limited run of a Porsche 911? You got a bespoke front fascia and a massive park bench in the rear. Aero disc wheels at the rear and the GT2 RS bumper. You can see that right here, looking very cool. Love this bumper. It's a very classically laid out bumper with the intake in the middle. Two big intakes on the side, and we also still have, for this older generation, we have these beautiful LEDs here on the sides instead of having like we have now inside of the headlight units. So it's possible this prototype is simply being used to test parts for the new 992. The 911 Turbo slant nose is one of the most distinctive iterations of the rear-engine sports car ever, so it's hardly surprising that Porsche could be preparing a release of a modern version of this vehicle. This prototype is not based on the current 992 though, but rather the old 991. You can see that here in the back. And me personally, if I were to buy a Porsche 911 today, this is the generation that I would go with. I think this looks a lot better in the rear than the current 911 that we have. I do like the separation that we don't have a light bar in the middle except for on the 4S, of course. And I also like that these dip down a little bit and have this curvature to the rear end. This, to me, is a much more attractive rear end than what we have in the current 911. You can see that here as well if we look at the, let's see if we can get the side view here, the slant nose front end design looking very, very cool. It doesn't look like, too much of a difference from the regular 911, and that is what I love about this. Instead, we just have the headlights sitting now flush. They don't stick out too much from the hood, which is something I still love on the Porsche 911, but in this case, it still looks very, very cool. Dual exhaust pipes in the lower section. So the headlights here, as I said, sit flush with the bodywork rather than protruding like those on other current models. Porsche is known to be developing an all-new 911 GT2 RS and it's not beyond the realm of possibility this flat nose could return as an exclusive version of that car. I personally would absolutely love to see that. Porsche, I think right now is one of my favorite brands. They just become more and more interesting to me every single year, because what I love about Porsche in general, in the 911 specifically, is just that they do small tweaks over decades of time just to perfect the engineering of this vehicle. Some people absolutely hate it, they can't stand it. They want to see a Porsche 911 look like something Porsche 911 has never looked like before. But I think it's extremely refreshing in a world today where everything changes so fast that Porsche has this respect for the old shapes and the old graphics of the 911 and just tweak them very delicately for every new iteration of the 911. So let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at these designs. The slant nose to the left, obviously, I mean, very easy to see which one is which here. Then we have the K1 SUV on the right side. Let me know what you think about these vehicles. Specifically, I want to hear your opinions on this, because this to me looks like just a maybe, I'm not going to call it a money grab, but SUVs are the vehicles that make car companies like this still be in existence. If it wasn't for the Urus, for example, for Lamborghini, I don't think Lamborghini would have enough profits to actually stay in business. I think it's more than 50% of the sales of Lamborghinis is coming from the Urus. So that is bringing in a lot of revenue that allows Lamborghini, for example, to create other cool models, sport models, of course. And I think that the same, of course, happens with Porsche, with the Cayenne Macan. They are bringing in so much revenue for the company, allowing them to create something cool like this. And that is why I'm still a fan of SUVs for supercar or sports car manufacturers like Porsche. Now look at the slant nose right here. I love the front end, the GT2 RS front end. If they were to put this into production just looking like this with the old 991 rear end, I would not be opposed to that one bit. And I also really like the headlight design. I think these are headlights. They could actually be stickers. You don't know with these camouflage images. It's very hard to see. Is this a sticker up top? Is this the headlight at the lower section? What's going on here? I'm not entirely sure. I do believe this top piece is actually a sticker, and the headlight unit is the lower section right here. That is at least what I wish it would be, because that would look to be in the correct position. We have some intakes up top on the hood. And everything about this, I mean, the small details such as the hood design and this lower section, the GT2 RS bumper, is probably going to change for whatever production version this is going to be. Looking at the side view in this matte black, looking extremely beautiful and cool. We have this typical Porsche line here with the roof line, and the slant nose now having one single curvature instead of having two curvatures like this, which we usually have on regular Porsches because you have the headlights sticking up a little bit. Now it's just one single curvature going down from the A-pillar into the hood, and of course the GT2 RS front bumper. Beautiful line flow in the lower section going into the rear end here, and then we have these stunning taillights of this generation 911. Looking so good. Rear end park bench, of course, up top right here. And Porsche has always been one of these brands. Usually, I'm not a huge fan of big wings like this. But on a Porsche 911 specifically, wings like this, if you have the correct front end, in this case we do with the GT2 RS front end, we need to balance that aggressiveness in the front out somehow for the rear end. And that is why usually when you have the correct package all around, a big wing like this is something that looks absolutely natural on a Porsche 911. I don't think any other brand look as good with a big park bench like this on the back like a Porsche 911. Personally, I would personally go with the Sport Classic. I think it's called the 911 Sport Classic, with this little subtle ducktail in the rear end, which is my favorite rear end of any Porsche. It just looks so subtle, so clean, so elegant and classic. Even though if you were to have, you know, a GT2 RS or something like that, GT3, then I would probably still want to have a big wing up here. But for the classier look, the ducktail of the Sport Classic is definitely my favorite iteration of a rear end of a Porsche 911. And then, of course, we do have these older taillights, which in my opinion still look very modern because they have a one single LED right here, looking beautiful, and it's not overcomplicated. It's just a stunning looking design. Now look at the K1 SUV here from a side view specifically. These proportions, they say that this is not going to be an EV now, even though it was from the beginning supposed to be built on a completely new EV platform. But now they're going to drop it as an internal combustion engine, a hybrid version, and no EV in sight. I can't imagine how much money. I mean, I can't imagine because they mentioned it, 1.8 billion euros, I think they said in the article, this decision to ditch this platform. But I'm not opposed to it because I think this in the long run is going to help Porsche and be a positive decision for Porsche, because I think it's going to sell a lot more with the hybrid setup and the internal combustion engine setup that we are going to see now. Even though the design itself, I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing right now. Of course, going to have to wait and see what this looks like in real life. But look at the static feel that we have in the rear end. I don't want to see Porsche jump on this trend with pixelated lights. It just does not feel right to have on a Porsche. And also you have, parallel lines here. It's not a dip like we have on the current Cayenne, which looks great, by the way, for an SUV from Porsche. These are just two parallel lines with some pixelated lights here. And then this iteration here, I'm not sure if this is the outline of the taillight, but this reminds me a lot of an old Range Rover Sport taillight design. It's not what I want to see from Porsche. I know it's an SUV. They need to make something different from the 911, but I still want to have the roundness that we have in the bodywork. I want to have that, of course, in the graphic features that we have here as well. And in my opinion, it does not seem to be the case. You can see the sticker here. They're trying to make it look like it has massive, biggest headlights ever put on a production vehicle. But of course, this one right here is just a sticker, and this is the actual headlight. As you can see, it's pretty easy to see that on this. So for me, the only question I have is, what is Porsche thinking about the 718? That is going to be my main question for Porsche moving forward. I wish there was a fly on the wall in the boardroom or the management room and what they're actually saying about the 718 now that they're seeing that EVs in sports car versions are not really doing that well, but they're already so deep into production that they can't bring it back now. And that is the reason why I think the 718 EV is only going to be around for a couple of years before they actually go back to introducing internal combustion engines for that version.